Good morning, students, and welcome to another English class. Today we are going to take up a topic from your book, Communicate with Cambridge. The name of the poem is The Village Blacksmith. Introduction to the author. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, born on February 27, 1807 in Portland, Massachusetts, is one of the most popular American poets of the 19th century. He is known for works as The Song of Hiawatha and Paul Revere's Ride. Longfellow gave poetry higher standing within American society than it had enjoyed ever before. In poems throughout his career, he represented persons of all times, cultures, and states of life as turning to creative expression like music, song, poetry, storytelling, and pottery for entertainment and reassurance. Introduction to the lesson. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's The Village Blacksmith emphasizes how the life and work of a common working man can provide an example of persistence and accomplishment in spite of trials and tragedies. It teaches us to persevere and work hard just like the blacksmith in the story. New words. Chestnut, a glossy, hard, brown, edible nut. Mighty, having a lot of strength and power. Smith, which means blacksmith. Morn is short for morning. Sledge, a vehicle on runners for conveying load or passengers over snow or ice, often pulled by animals. Threshing, move violently. Parson, a member of the clergy. Choir, an organized group of singers, especially one that performs in a church. Toiling, work extremely hard. Forge, create something strong and durable. Word meanings. Smithy, a blacksmith's workshop. Sinewy, with strong muscles and little fat. Brawny, muscular. Bellows, mechanical device that blows a strong current of air used to make a fire burn more fiercely. Sexton, a person who looks after a church and a churchyard. Forge, a furnace where metals are heated and shaped. Repose, sleep. Worthy, deserving respect and admiration. Wrought, bent into attractive shapes. Anvil, a heavy block of iron. Now let us discuss the entire poem stanza-wise. Under a spreading chestnut tree the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands, and the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron hands. The author tells us that the smithy or the workshop of the blacksmith stands under a chestnut tree. The poet here gives a description about the appearance of the village blacksmith in the village by telling us about his physique and how strong his arms look. The poet gives description of his strong arms and muscles, which is a result of hard work that he does being a blacksmith and which frames his body like this. His hair is crisp and black and long. His face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat. He earns whate'er he can and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. The poet further gives some details of his appearance in this poem by speaking about his hair, which is black, crisp and long, which comes from dwelling in the sun all day long. His face is tanned by the harsh sun rays in the day. He is sweating from the hard work that he is doing. He is proud and dignified as he is an honest man and he earns his living honestly. Hence he is not afraid of anyone. These symbols are also the maker of the kind of uncomfortable and hard-working lifestyle that he lives, which has affected his body. However, he is a man who is not affected by his poor and harsh conditions to fall into temptations of cheating and unfair business. The blacksmith is a noble man who does his business honestly. As you can see in the last line, the poet says, for he owes not any man. He does not take any bribes. He is an honest person who earns his living very honestly. Let's move on to the third stanza. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. The poet now speaks how hard the village blacksmith works day and night with his bellows and tools. One can hear the blows from his bellows and him dragging his heavy sleigh. He dwells from the sunrise to the sunset every day. The blacksmith works very hard every day from sunrise to sunset. Let's move on to the fourth stanza. And children coming home from school look in at the open door. They love to see the flaming forge and hear the bellows roar, and catch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. The poet is speaking about how the children are mesmerized by his work. They are fascinated by his work. They are excited to look through the open door to see the sparks flying from the flames and his bellow, which is his tool, hitting the metal. Now the blacksmith is working with tools to forge, to make weapons, to forge weapons, to form shapes. He is pouring melted weapon into a forge, into a cast, so that he can make tools, or he can make weapons. They love to see how the flames and the sparks are forming shapes in the air. Now let's move on to the fifth stanza. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. He hears the parson pray and preach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir and makes his heart rejoice. In these lines, the poet is trying to show that the blacksmith is also a part of the society, where he participates in the social practices and customs. He goes to the church on Sundays and sits with his friends. He watches his daughter singing in the choir and he feels happy. His heart rejoices when he listens to his daughter's voice, who is singing in the choir. Let's move on to the next stanza, the sixth stanza. It sounds to him like her mother's voice singing in paradise. He must think of her once more, how in the grave she lies, and with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. He gets emotional as he sees his daughter singing in the choir. He is the blacksmith over here, which reminds him of his wife. His wife passed away and he is remembering her singing for him. He sees an image or reflection of his wife in his daughter because his daughter's voice is similar to that of his wife. He finds her voice and singing divine, which brings tears to his eyes. The blacksmith sees a reflection of his wife in his daughter. These lines show the noble character of the blacksmith and his love toward his family. Now, look at the word hard, rough hand. Even though the blacksmith is portrayed as being a very hard-working, or maybe a very harsh person, but in the end he is also a human. He has human emotions, and he also, when he is remembering his dead wife, he gets emotional and he also sheds tears. Let's move on to the seventh stanza. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begun. Each evening sees its close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. And here we can see he lives his life like this, toiling for his living, rejoicing with his friends and daughter, remembering his wife and whatever memories he has of her. He begins his work in the morning and dwells till night to earn his living. He would try to escape to do something new, and some work he would complete for the day, and some he would think to finish the next day. These lines mean that the blacksmith dwells with work which is the similar work of a lot of thoughtless physical work. He is following the similar work patterns every day to earn a living, and in the end he sleeps at peace at night because he is a honest, hardworking person. He does not take bribe. He earns his living very honestly, so at night he sleeps peacefully. Let's look at the last stanza. Thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. In the last stanza, the poet is thanking the blacksmith for a lesson that he has taught him without his knowledge. The way the blacksmith dwells from day and night teaches him that we are makers of our own fate, and each day we shape our future and lives with our own hands by being hardworking, dedicated, and honest. Themes reflected in the poem. The village blacksmith reflects the themes of nature, optimism, and individuality in many ways. Henry Wadsworth explains the individuality of the blacksmith by defining the blacksmith and what his features are. He basically means his physical features or his strength. Henry also explains the blacksmith's optimism by telling us how much he works. Now, in the poem, you must have seen that the blacksmith works probably the entire day. He works very hard the entire day. He also shows the nature of the blacksmith by his daily life. With the nature of the blacksmith is he is honest, he is hardworking, he is dedicated. So those are the features of the blacksmith, his nature. Literary devices in the poem. The poem uses sound devices like alliteration, example, mighty man, smithy stands, hear his, hear him, his heavy, and flaming forge. The poem also uses visual images beginning with the reference to the spreading chestnut tree. The setting is said to be based on the blacksmith's workplace in Longfellow's own town of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and including the emphasis on the blacksmith's strength and appearance as evidenced in his large and sinewy hands, his brawny arms, and his perspiring brow. There are also oral images, the sound of his bellows blow and his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow. We also see the blacksmith is pictured at church sitting with his sons, listening to the prayer and sermon and his daughter's voice. These are also examples of oral imagery. Similes are used to fill out the picture of the blacksmith's strength and appearance. He has arms as strong as iron bands and a face like the tan. Literary devices in the poem. The simile that describes the rhythm of the blacksmith's daily work, like a sexton ringing the village bell at sunset, is appropriate to the setting of the poem in a small village centered around religion and church going. Other examples of simile include the burning sparks as being like chaff from a threshing floor. The daughter singing sounds to the blacksmith like her mother's voice singing in paradise. It is this reminder of death and afterlife that causes the blacksmith to weep and consider, at least briefly, the tragedy of his own life. Rhyme and meter. The village blacksmith contains 8 stanzas with 6 lines each for a total of 55 lines. The rhyme scheme for each stanza is ABA, BCB in the first stanza and ABC, BDB in the others. The poem is developed in 8 stanzas of 6 ballad-like lines of alternating iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. I hope you understood the poem. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in class. Thank you for watching.